Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So it's 7 o'clock. We've got a special meeting of Cabinet this evening. So can we first of all take apologies for absence?
Hello, we've received apologies for absence today from Councillors Pitt and Davenport Ray. Thank you. And Hassel.
Thank you very much. And I think we're expecting Councillor Taylor, who I'm assuming may arrive slightly late. Okay, in which case then, can we move on to item 1, which is members' interests? Are there any interests that need to be declared? No, so that's none, thank you. Item 2 then, this is the call-in for the garden waste subscription service. Those of you who are joining us in person and online will know that we've already taken this to overview and scrutiny. It's already come through Cabinet and we've made a decision. We were asked to call that decision in. So we have been through that process again to look at that decision. It would normally be for Councillor Hassel to report, but Councillor Ferguson has very kindly agreed to deputise for the deputy of the deputy, I think is how it goes. And thank you, because Councillor Ferguson, you covered that meeting for us. So are you happy to take us through a summary of the points that were made and the things that we need to bear in mind? Welcome, Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So it was a full and interesting meeting. The ONS panel raised a number of challenges. The first, and I think the most prominent, was a lack of consultation with people in the district. I made the point that in order for us to have a meaningful consultation with residents, we would have had to have had other options on the table. And since the opposition or nobody else at the moment has proposed any alternatives that would deliver these savings or deliver this revenue, then it was very difficult for us to go to consultation. And I think it would have been immoral for us to do so. If we'd had to go to consultation, people had said they were opposed to it and we would have had to do it anyway. So I think the gunning principles don't allow us to do that. I think it would have been immoral. The report also listed the situations in which we would be legally required to consult with residents, and this was not one of them. There were also comments about a lack of electoral mandate to introduce the charge. Councillor Pickering read out a letter from the previous administration which highlighted that when they had introduced the charge for the second green bin about 10 years ago, they'd done so without consultation or a manifesto commitment. And I think it's also true that a number of other somewhat unpopular but financially prudent decisions were taken by the previous administration, including increasing car parking charges, which were not in their manifesto. And I think that's the nature of government, is sometimes you have to take unpopular decisions if they're the right thing to do. And I think in May 2022, when we stood for election, none of us were aware of the precarious nature of the council's finances or the effect that double-digit inflation would have on our MTFS as well. So I think, when we go into the next election, I'm sure we'll have a better understanding of the finances. One of the comments was there was a lack of evidence and data made available to councillors, which I think is a strange comment given that the agenda pack for tonight and for ONS is over 100 pages long, includes detailed modelling of the environmental and financial impacts of this decision, including empirical observations from other councils, the majority of whom have already implemented a garden waste charge. So I'm not sure that that's one we should give too much consideration to. I think this has been one of the most thought out, discussed decisions this council's ever made, and I think there's been plenty of evidence available. There are also claims that there was no clear financial plan on how the charge would impact the vulnerable district. I pointed out then that this optional green bin charge would cost a maximum of £1.11 per household per week for a single bin. The most vulnerable residents in the district are 4,000 people who are working age people who receive council tax support, some of whom have an income of less than £86 a week. And currently, under the council tax support scheme introduced by the previous administration, some of those people, having less than £86 a week, are still getting charged about £8.70 in council tax a week. And we have proposals, which is open to consultation now, to increase the amount of council tax support to 100%, and that, I think, is a much better way of helping those residents. I also point out that the equality impact statement was included in the papers and discussed many of those issues. And I think we've agreed to work with parish and town councils to provide support for those residents, perhaps with freighter services. But we're going to have an engagement town and parish councils to work out how we can serve them better. There are also comments about the impact on grey bin waste and on additional use of recycling centres, but both of those are addressed in Appendix 4 of the papers, and I don't think need much discussion here. There was a question about a difference between the figures presented in the MTFS and those presented to ONS, which our 151 officer explained was down to the County Council not providing the financial impact data in time for the MTFS, and we've simply included it in this paper because it's the latest information that was available. The meeting finished with Councillor Alban, who moved a motion to recommend Cabinet should not proceed with this scheme, but that motion was comprehensively defeated. There are also requests that the council should monitor and formally report on the environmental impact of the scheme, which I'm sure we're happy to do. And in fact, we do already in our monitoring. We also report recycling rates and a tonnage of waste we collect, and we're always happy to see. I think we have to have discussions about how this proceeds going forward anyway. And there was a further request that the sensitivity analysis should be revised to include lower rates of uptake, suggested 15% up to 2028. Whether we want to do that or not, I don't know, because it would involve lots more work. Those are the comments as I remember them. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson. Are there any comments from others in Cabinet? Because I'm going to open this up for discussion, and I'm going to take the liberty of making some points from the chair too. Would anybody like to kick us off? I know that we've spent a long time at overview and scrutiny, both sets of meetings in excess of, I think, 5 hours, considerable consideration also given at the previous Cabinet meeting. Councillor Sanderson?
Thank you, Chair. I thought Councillor Ferguson's summary was very thorough and summed things up extremely well from that meeting, which I attended in person. I thought Councillor Gleadow chaired it well. A lot of good points covered. It wasn't too repetitive, although there were some of the same remarks that we'd heard before. And I think in the absence of any alternative to this, and I think we're on record as saying it's not something that we take any pleasure in doing, far from it. But I think given the council's financial situation and some of the errors made in previous years, I think this is a sensible way forward. So I'm happy to support that we continue with this project and this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Mickelber and then Councillor Taylor.
I was a little bit disappointed I couldn't make the microphone doesn't want me attending tonight's meeting either. So I was heartened to watch the stream and Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Hassell's performance. I'm also, I must say, that the transparency of the process and the ability for people to just sit on YouTube from the comfort of their own homes and to be able to see what is going on, to hear the debates, and then to come back and watch it again at points beyond the meeting, I think is really important. And I'd like to thank Councillor Ferguson for his fairly dogged determination to ensure that we introduce streaming as we form this new administration, because I think it's brought an awful lot of advantages, and hopefully it encourages people that we are taking that transparency side of things seriously. One of the things that did strike me is that everybody who sits here at a full council session even has sought election for different reasons, and that will be because they have different passions or they have different motivations for being a councillor. And for some that sort of spring to mind include things like social justice or green climate change style issues or local built environment. Maybe they have a particular passion for restricting building within certain types of conservation planning areas. The problem is that when you form an administration, and particularly a cabinet, is that no matter what your top passion, your priority is, when you arrive, everything gets moved down one, and a new number one comes in. And that new number one is the financial sustainability of the council, and within that, the mitigation of financial risks that are obvious and apparent. And I think, unfortunately, that's one of the things that now burdens us. So we go from that idealistic world to that we encounter reality really, really firmly. And unfortunately, that just is the point, that no matter how much we may dislike this, and no matter how much we think this is the least worst option that is available to us, it will help us to deliver a boringly stable financial outcome without unnecessary financial risks. And we only need to look around at some other councils who have struggled to deliver on that boringly reliable financial side and are now seeing those risks crystallise. So unfortunately, as I say to anybody in my ward who's had a conversation with me about this topic, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, we don't like it. But yes, it's more important that this council continues to operate to the best of its ability, avoids those financial risks, has that sustainability, and can deliver all of the services that you require and almost take, I think people almost take for granted at times, because HDC's performance is very good. Let's continue being boring on the finance side, because what it means is that we can be excellent everywhere else.
Thank you very much. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Chair. I echo everything that's just been said, and thank you, Councillor Ferguson, for taking the helm there. I would actually like to thank Overview and Scrutiny for their robust scrutiny over both of the meetings, as you said, Chair. Very long meetings, especially the first one. I understand why they called it in, and to be quite honest, I would have done the same had I been in opposition. Along with the rest of the Cabinet, have deliberated over this decision for a year. Now, my thoughts were I would be very, very uncomfortable changing to subscription service for garden waste. My first thoughts were no, no, no. As you all know, I was quite resistant to it. I had to start thinking with my head and not my heart in the end, as I knew financially the council was not sustainable. In the last year, we have, as a Cabinet, chewed over this and took a really deep dive into the pros and cons. I do believe now, although it was a decision I didn't even want to entertain, we have to do this. We have to keep the council running as best as we can and keep providing essential services for the residents of Huntingdonshire. I also would like to put on record my thanks to all the officers who have worked very hard on the reports and been asked many tough questions from myself and the rest of the Cabinet. So thank you, and I do support this decision.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Wakeford?
Thank you. I concur with, I think, everything I've heard around the table this evening. I remarked at our last Cabinet meeting discussing the green waste subscription proposals, how it felt that there were two parallel conversations ongoing, the one with our residents with many thousands, many of them with concerns, very understandably engaging in good faith in all sorts of different ways, which we've done our best to to engage with ourselves, as we've touched upon previously, and then another with our opposition group seeking slightly implausibly to claim political credit for taking a political stance on this. In the spirit of Councillor Glido's firm chairing of scrutiny recently, I don't intend to repeat that. She wouldn't have allowed repetition, and I'm quite sure our chair tonight wouldn't either. But per the earlier exchange with councillor colleagues across the table, I am told it's on YouTube. But I would say it is. It was, disappointing to me that the game playing didn't end entirely. As Councillor Taylor rightly says, we aren't stupid. We can see what they're doing. We can understand why they're doing it. We have a significant degree of empathy. But I would just like to underline that the fundamental claim in the call-in that we'd somehow broken council policy or financial procedure by having made the decision we did at the first time we made it, which was the whole procedural basis of a call-in, wasn't even nearly made. I won't say they even sort of gave up trying, but I was entirely satisfied with the robustness of our numbers, of our business case, of the detailed papers, contrary to implausible claims otherwise, that defended robustly. I think the decision that we'd taken, and Councillor Ferguson touched as well on the cries of consult. We had the further opportunity at that scrutiny panel to clarify what on earth it was. There was a suggestion that the consultation should have been about, because that wasn't specified in any of the call-ins, even that did say that there should have been consultation. And I tend to agree with Councillor Ferguson that there weren't other alternatives that would have given us the realistic scope to do something that isn't this while maintaining the council's financial stability, as I think Councillor Mickelberg put it. And of course, financial stability sounds sort of boring, and why would we care? But it's the ability of the council to continue collecting bins, to continue supporting residents in need, to continue doing all of the critical roles, both in terms of service and the wider strategic work. Ensuring housing for our next generation. My kids and their peers around the district. So it is absolutely critical. We didn't hear. Didn't hear alternatives. So I think it was clarified that the ask to consult was on that, we think, impossible and insincere question of, do you want to do this or not? And we all recognise it would be offensive profoundly to our residents to do an insincere consultation, and that is certainly not what any of us mean when we seek to do politics through meaningful engagement and consultation with residents wherever we can. So I'm as unthrilled with where we are as Councillor Taylor and as anyone else, in the sense that I wish the music didn't stop while we were holding the reins, to mix my metaphors horribly. But it did, in terms of the council's financial stability. It is right that we've made decisions that are responsible rather than popular. So while I'm not thrilled, I am content, because it's the right decision, and I'm very happy on that basis to support us remaking it. Chair.
Thank you very much, councillors. If I may, from the chair, I'm equally not going to repeat, because otherwise Councillor Glido, I'm sure, will send me a note reminding me that that's not appropriate. But much of the conversations that you've and the feelings that you've all expressed are the similar journey that I too have been on personally. Like Councillor Taylor, it was anything but this, and I would have wished for another viable option to be available to us. We really have tested all of the other alternatives. We are facing a position where we either provide the service under subscription or we stop it. we don't wish to stop the service. We wish to provide a service for those that would wish to have the service. And we have already committed that we will engage around what comes next to best understand how we can work with towns and parishes and with residents in the implementation of that subscription service. And we've got some things that we've already indicated we would wish to pilot. But I want to be really clear. We have heard how residents feel. We've heard how councillors representing those residents feel. And we've heard from towns and parishes who are also representing their communities. We know that some of this is deeply unpopular. If anybody says, would you like to pay more for anything? The answer is inevitably no, thank you. And actually, we all feel like that. We wouldn't be introducing this if we had a better alternative. This is the best of the least desirable things that we may have to do. I think what's really important, though, is again just to state, because I know how emotionally people have felt over this issue. We have heard, we have understood, and we will continue to listen. Sometimes we have to make decisions which are deeply uncomfortable for us as individuals, but they are the right thing for us to do. And that financial stability is crucial, because without that, we cannot deliver those services to those who need our services the most. We cannot protect those who are in need. We cannot help those who are in need or could be in need not to get into that position in the first place. And we said we would be working for our future generations too. There are some things that we can do that make this option better. We've said that we will look at how we can make the best of composting, ways of helping people to dispose of their waste, and in fact, reducing the volume of waste that will enter the waste stream full stop. That's got to be better for everybody, particularly food waste, but obviously garden waste too. So we have before us a recommendation to confirm the decision that we have already previously taken. We have been reminded that we should consider the arguments already put forward. And so the recommendation before us is to consider the points as summarised and determine the recommendations contained in the report. So I would now ask for a... Yes, certainly.
Forgive me, reflecting on your comments, which I think were really helpful. The point you made about the the engagement we want to proceed with around mitigations, for want of a better term, with local parishes and town councils, for example, I think one that's just worth underlining. I'm conscious that it was suggested towards the tail end of the repeat second scrutiny meeting by a Conservative councillor that, well, okay, that engagement sounds almost like the consultation we were asking for, and almost seeking to claim credit for that, to call that as a win. As we all know, but it may be worth us spelling out for benefit of the meeting. Of course, we explained that we were going to do that the first time around, and the implication of the call-in freezing us actually implementing this decision has been to delay that exercise. So the call-in process hasn't secured any further consultation, as might be framed. As we've talked about, we'd be doing that anyway if it was meaningful, but it certainly has delayed us proceeding with what I think there was a measure of cross-party recognition was actually valuable at the end of the meeting. So that's sort of disappointing, but I'm pleased we are where we are on it, and I think you were right to draw attention to it. So forgive me for delaying, but that felt worth a mention.
Thank you, Councillor Wakeford. And I agree with you. We have a proper process. We have exercised that proper process in full. That's right and proper that we do so. It has created a level of delay, but nothing which is insurmountable, and officers already have a way of being able to make sure we catch up on the original envisaged timescales. I will thank officers in a moment, but can I just move us through to the recommendation before we take a decision and then I do some closing remarks. So the recommendation we have before us is from the original cabinet meeting where we had a proposal to accept the decision that we were going to move ahead with the garden waste subscription service. So what you are being asked to decide tonight is, are you content to endorse that decision, having been through call-in and been through a second scrutiny process? Are you now content to take that decision? So, Councillor Ferguson, is it a proposal from you that that's what we do?
Yes, please.
Thank you. And can I have a second, please? Councillor Sanderson, thank you. Can I have a show of hands for those in favour of endorsing that original decision? Thank you very much. So that's unanimous. Can I then say at this point, as part of my closing remarks, I'd like to thank every member of the public that spoke up. I'd like to thank all of the officers for their considerable efforts and energy in doing a really good process, on being really robustly tested and being very clear in their responses back, both to us and to those who have corresponded and been in touch. I'd like to thank the call centre, because I know inevitably they've handled some calls and inquiries so far, but I suspect they will continue to do so. And I'd like to thank all of those who've supported us in getting the correct messages out so far about what we are actually doing in a factual manner, and making sure that that information is being provided back out to residents. So it's a thank you. It's also a particular thank you to the councillors who've been directly involved. Councillor Hassel isn't here tonight because he's unfortunately needs to be working away from home, but has taken this role on and has worked very diligently to make sure that we've done our democratic responsibilities to the fullest possible. But can I also please thank Councillor Mickelberg and Councillor Ferguson for very ably supporting that process to make sure that we have provided all of the information from an elected member's cabinet point of view. So on that note then, at just before 7:30, I'd like to draw this meeting to a close. Thank you very much.